start in about 10 more seconds. Today we'll move forward on our steps to ensuring mobility. I want to begin. What happened to my notes? Okay, there we go. Today's June 3rd, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Transportation Committee. I'm Councilwoman Heather Hutt, Chair of the committee, and I'm joined here today by Council Members Hernandez and Councilmember Yaroslavsky. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Hutt.
Present.
Councilmember Park. Councilmember Park is absent. Councilmember Hernandez.
Present.
Councilmember Rahman. Councilmember Rahman is absent. Councilmember Yaroslavsky.
Here.
3 members and a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and good morning. I want to thank you all for taking the time out on a Saturday morning to join us for the first transportation hearing in the community since COVID-19. And I really appreciate our avid bike riders for coming here on their bicycles, especially those that came from South LA and also the Valley. So thank you so much. Today we'll move forward on our steps to ensuring mobility justice by protecting cyclists like yourselves and the pedestrians across the city. Our city is very committed to protecting our aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, and even our pets as we travel, whether it's for recreational use or it's getting to and from school or the workplace. As a sister to an avid bicyclist who's been hit by a car once, I know the importance of this work. And I stand with you in the efforts to make sure our bicycle users are safe and that their loved ones don't have to live in fear when they're out on their bikes. Again, I thank you for taking time out of your weekend to join us. By being here today, you're part of a solution, and I look forward to working with you in creating change. Members, today we have 4 items on the agenda. The CLA submitted a report dated June 1st, 2023, and revised a resolution for number 4. Both have been attached to the council file, number 23002-S57. Before we get to the item, let's begin by taking public comment.
This is the portion of the meeting dedicated to public comment. People wishing to make public comment must sign up with a speaker card and turn it into the clerk. I will call on speakers who wish to speak. When it's your turn to speak, please come up to the podium and you'll have 1 minute to speak. The timer is here. At the end of that 1 minute, we'll call your time and we'll move on to the next speaker. The first speaker is Brooke Rios. Please come to the podium. And after that, we'll have John Jones III. Please line up behind her.
Before we go further, don't we get a couple minutes on agenda items and 1 on general public comment?
Sir, we don't have general public comment today because it's a special meeting.
We just get 1 minute on all 4 items?
That's correct. Brooke, you may begin. You have 1 minute.
Good morning, LA City Council members. My name is Dr. Brooke Rios, and I'm the Executive Director of New Los Angeles Charter Schools. We have 2 schools, soon 3 schools in Council District 10. The families who attend our schools are impacted daily by issues of mobility justice. I'm here today in support of the resolutions put forth by Councilwoman Hutt as a traffic safety advocate and as a featured community member in the film Biking While Black. I've worked at New LA for the past 14 years. 7 of those years I served as the principal of the middle school. During that time, I stood on the corner of Washington Avenue and Burnside each morning, and I watched our families struggle to find a safe route to school. Our families were literally darting across Washington Boulevard in rush hour traffic trying to get to school. Thanks to the advocacy efforts of former New LA parent Yolanda Overstreet Davis, CD10, LADOT, and Mid-City Neighborhood Council, the walk to school looks much different at New LA today. We have a traffic stop and a crosswalk.
Thank you, Brooke. That is your time.
Thank you.
Just a little housekeeping, Hakeem, before you go to the next person. The podium for public comment is on this side. The timer, so that you can see it, is on this side. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next up, we have John Jones III, and then after that, we have Caro Villiane.
Good morning.
thank you, council, for coming down to South LA and holding this meeting here in a community that really needs new things to happen in our community to protect all these cyclists that's here today and the people in our community. We are in support. I'm John Jones from Eastside Riders Bike Club. We are in support of everything that the council or the committee is moving forward today regarding saving our streets and keeping our streets protected, especially in the South LA community where we are in need of more laws to help us cycle through our communities in a safer way. We also want to bring to the attention the need to keep these protected bike lanes that we're building in our communities clean. So we hope that you guys hear that and you guys move forth to try to keep these lanes that we're bringing to our community clean so then we can ride safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Caro Villain. Please state your name, and you have 1 minute.
Good morning. My name is Cara Villain. I'm totally not prepared for this, but I want to speak in support of items 3 and 4 because our system is failing us. People are dying at increasing rates. Traffic violence is the leading cause of death for children in LA County, and more people are getting injured and suffering mentally and physically from this violence. And to illustrate it, I'm going to pull up the Vision Zero bot by Swissroll on Twitter that reports all the collisions between pedestrians and cyclists that have been reported. So let's see what happened today. 36 minutes ago, pedestrian struck by vehicle. 3 hours ago, person freed from vehicle after crash. 4 hours ago, vehicle collision involving bicyclist. 8 hours ago, pedestrian involved traffic collision. 8 hours ago, vehicle collision involving pedestrian. 9 hours ago, pedestrian struck by vehicle. 15 hours ago, pedestrian accident. 16 hours ago, pedestrian struck by vehicle. 16 hours ago, pedestrian struck by vehicle. 17 hours ago, pedestrian collision. 23 hours ago.
Thank you. That's your time. Next up, we have Eden Barrientos. Please state your name and you have 1 minute.
Good morning. My name is Eden. I'm speaking on the behalf of cyclists in South Central LA and also people that walk in the streets of LA too. My mom and my sister are always walking down Slauson, 54th Street, Western, and the culture in South Central is just speeding cars, recklessness, and I'm just quite tired of it, where people's lives are being put in danger every day, and I don't know what we have to do as a community, as the city, to change the culture, but it's out of control. People are getting injured. There's people losing family. I've had enough, and we need more bike infrastructure. Law enforcement and laws have to be put in place to be more strict about this because it's a serious issue.
Thank you, Eden. Next up, we have Ida Ashori. And after Ida, we have Jacob Hamilton. Please state your name, and you have 1 minute.
Good morning. I just want to say that I am so happy that we're having a meeting on the weekend, and I would like to see the city doing this more to give an opportunity for people who are working during the week to also participate in our community process and show that this is a city for everybody. I'd like to also speak on agenda items 3 and 4. First, as I'm echoing my other compatriots here, vehicles are a source of a health crisis here in our city. The amount of increase exponentially of people getting killed by traffic violence is astounding, and we're going backwards here. As well, LA is the #1 city in the country for hit and runs, and there is very little being done to prosecute these crimes in the city, and we'd like to see more of this happening. When someone kills or injures a cyclist or a pedestrian, there should be real consequences to their driving record as well as education. So I would really like to encourage the city to pass the education for drivers to understand the rules of the road, because...
Thank you, Ida.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jacob Hamilton. And after that, we have Damon Turner.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jacob Hamilton. So I am actually not a cyclist. I was invited here today because of this cause, and just my experience just riding a bike for the first time in many years. The group of individuals who I was riding with kept me safe, and actually being a part of it, you do see from the opposite side, you know, cyclists, people who ride bicycles, they are not necessarily really safe. Me being in that experience. So just being here and just seeing everybody want to create a very good cause, it does mean a lot. And I do think that this is something that needs to be looked at. You know, people are actually, you know, really spiteful, especially with bicyclists being on the road. So yes, I think this is really important as anything else. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Damon Turner. Please state your name. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, good morning, council members. Thank you for coming out, and I share the sentiments. Having this on the weekend is a good thing. I'm founder of LA Bike Academy here in Los Angeles. We have a retail store at Jefferson 11th Avenue. And I think the sentiment around bicycle safety is clear. Since we've been there October of last year, I've seen 6 head-on collisions or car collisions at that intersection and 1 bicycle accident, and he was hurt pretty bad. So just to give a quick description, 11th Avenue, cars are literally having to speed to get across the intersection because of the speed of the traffic on Jefferson Boulevard, in excess of 60 miles an hour. So they're catching, or they're going through 12th Avenue headed east, and it's just the traffic's too fast. And there's obviously residents, children, people trying to cross the streets and everything. So again, it's, you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have Mike Greenspan, and after that, we have Kim Perfetto.
Mike Greenspan. I took public transit, you limousine liberals. Anyway, now, the problem's not cars or trucks. Well, what's the problem? There are these things called cell phones, and they do texting, and they're on the phones, and they're driving. That's the big fucking problem. They think that they've got the right to do it. I'm not a bicyclist, but I do a lot of walking. And every intersection, I'm not on a device. I'm looking at that crosswalk. And when they go to try to run us over, and they're in the crosswalk, I say, I've got the fucking right of way. They don't seem to get it. They think the road is them. And they don't care about bicyclists, pedestrians, or anyone else. Look around this room. Everybody's got their fucking device. Well, maybe they ought to put them down, and the pigs ought to write some more tickets instead of campaigning for RIC KKK Caruso.
Kim Perfetto. Please state your name. You have 1 minute.
My name is Kim Perfetto. I'm a resident. I take public transit and ride my bike every day. I have a family, a growing family, 3 kids. And at the daycare alone, there's at least 5 other parents that pick up their kids with bicycles. And getting home is an adventure every single day, trying to get home safely. And I just wanted to show up today for the sake of my family, for the sake of the families that live around me. We live in South LA. It is the scariest place in Los Angeles, probably to ride a bike, I think. I've lived in a lot of other neighborhoods, and this one is definitely spicy. So more speed bumps, more slow streets, and definitely yes to what we're voting for today, for more education. Anything that can be done to change the culture. Beg you, for our young children, for everyone that lives here, for the old people. We all need more help just to get across the street, just to get to where we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jimmy Lizama. Please state your name. You have 1 minute.
Hi there, Jimmy Lizama, founding member of the Bicycle Kitchen, Bike LA, and also Reciclos recently. Echoing everybody's comments and saying definitely yes to all the measures here, but I'll take my time to address the council, and thank you for having us on Saturday. And specifically, your legacy should be one that creates a city that we can all be proud of, that all our children growing up in can look back and say, these are the people who actually led in the pathway toward a better city, that is a model city for the rest of the world. Global warming is very, very real. Street violence is very, very real. Racism is all very, very real, and it's all linked to transportation in a huge, huge way, locally and globally. As you look forward and look at policy, and look at moments you can actually make a change for communities and your own political histories, take it. And we'll all be thankful here, and we'll all look back going, yeah, you did the right thing. So, thank you.
That's nice.
Thank you. Next up, we have Margaret Doridas. And after that, we have Cassidy Davidson. Please state your name. You have 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Margaret Doritas, and I'm speaking on behalf of Bike LA. We're honored to be a part of this coalition, Our Streets Action Committee, which is working so hard to make Los Angeles a safer and more equitable place to live, walk, bike, take the bus, and more. And on behalf of the Bike LA team, I want to thank you all so much for having OSAC here to present. And I just hope that the conversation doesn't stop here and that we can meet with all of the ones that we haven't met with yet on this committee to make sure that we develop these ideas together and make sure these ambitious goals become a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And a point of order for the meeting. I see a few cards waving around. If you have a speaker card, please turn it in here. Next up, we have Elizabeth Finner. I'm sorry, did we get Cassidy Davidson? Sorry, thank you.
Hello. So every bike committee meeting or engineer thing I go to, it's always about money. How do we get better infrastructure for bikes and da-da-da? We don't even need that. I'm going to blow your mind, okay? January 1st of this year, right, CVC 21760 was amended to include this important provision. Now, if there's more than one lane heading in the same direction and there's a cyclist in the far right lane, you must change lanes when you pass a cyclist. That is so powerful. I keep telling people, yes to the education. We gotta let drivers know this law. But guess what else we can do? For free almost. We can put up signs on lanes that have multi-lanes roads. We can just put up a sign that says, bikes may use full lane. That is education right there, and it will blow drivers' minds because they're gonna be like, wow, I can read. Oh, that's the law. I'm going to pass a cyclist by changing a lane. Let's do it, and let's have more crosswalks. That's another free way that we can slow people down. Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Elizabeth Fenner.
Elizabeth Fenner, thank you for having me. And thanks for everybody who is here today. This represents change and positive direction. I grew up here in the 1970s, and it was smoggy. It was so bad. So every incremental change that has happened here in Los Angeles leads us to this amazing day, right? Where you see kids playing out, not smoggy. Lots of us took our bikes here. I biked to Echo Park last week, 2 weeks ago, to Beverly Hills last week, to here now. I am not myself haven't experienced aggression from drivers. And most drivers seem to want to be considerate of me. And so there's that balance. I think we can do more, we can do better, but I don't think there has to be hostility between the two. There just has to be understanding and development. So everything you do incrementally, little by little, I think improves LA and improves our relationships with each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Cody Lewis, and after that, we have James Harry. And point of order, if there are any other speaker cards, please make sure to give those to the sergeants.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Cody Lewis. Thank you to the committee for coming out and holding this on a weekend. I came with my daughter, Irie, just to prove a point that we're all a community here and we're all here to come together, and having space for bicycle and pedestrian walking infrastructure is very important. Leaving room and space for the community to gather, come together, and engage with one another in a different type of environment that hasn't been hospitable would be huge. So hosting races, improving the infrastructure, leaving room for bike lanes,
changing the laws by the driver safety and what they need to know when they go to take their driver test. All of this is super huge information that could go a long way, and we want to leave room for the next generation to feel confident to pick up a bike. So thank you for making time today, and thank you for having all of us. Appreciate it.
The next speaker card I have is James L. Harry. And after James L. Harry, we have Steve Davis. Please state your name. You have 1 minute.
The name is James L. Harvey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The thing is not so much drivers or bike riders. It's lawlessness. Lawlessness is both parties must be responsible. Back in the day, there was a term when people took their children places. Before you crossed the street, it was stop, look, and listen. We tend not to follow those instructions anymore. People tend to do what they wish. If we just be courteous and be watchful of others, it wouldn't matter. Bicycles are vehicles. And vehicles are on the road, not only bicycles, but automobiles. And if we watch and we look and we listen and respect one another, we wouldn't have problems. I thank you.
Steve Davis. Morning. You have 1 minute.
My friend and I just rode back from the beach along the Bionah bike path, which we do to go on our way to West Adams weekly, and just realized on this particular ride how bad the weeds have become on the bike path. So my question is very simple. Logistically, who is responsible for maintenance of the bike path? In this case, we really need to have the weeds on the north side cut because it makes one lane. One lane with two directions, obviously no good. So very practical question, getting into the weeds, pun intended. I hope you can help us out with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last speaker card that I have is Ryan Fiore. And if there are any other speaker cards, please make sure to give them to the sergeants.
Good morning. I also want to express my appreciation for this being on a Saturday. That makes it a lot easier to get here. It's also nice that it's over here in this southern part of LA. I've been hit by a car in this area more than once. I've been hit over on Adams and Redondo. A car going through the traffic light hit me on the side. Over on Washington and Redondo also. Somebody was trying to turn right, but they were looking left. They ran over my front wheel. It was really a pain in the ass. I just want to emphasize all the other comments that this situation is indeed dire. People are getting hurt. People who are just trying to get to work, just trying to take care of themselves. They can't live. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more speaker card for Lindsay Nolan.
Hello, council members. First, I just want to thank you for holding this meeting today. I was really excited when I saw it on social media this morning. It's really important to make time and space for these conversations. I live in the Pico Union neighborhood of Council District 1. Thank you for being here, council member. I am a pedestrian. I cycle. That's how I got here today. I don't own a car. And I support driver education for sure. I think that there's so many things that drivers don't understand about how to keep people safe, including themselves and others. And I also want to support data-driven investments in infrastructure, because that's what's really important, and prioritizing the most vulnerable neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hakeem, are those all of our public comments?
Madam Chair, we have no more speaker cards in the queue.
Thank
And
you.
that
Now
goes
that
forward.
we've concluded the public comment section, I'd like to close public comment and jump into our agenda. And now that we've taken care of all our public comment, let's move on to agenda item number 1. Mr. Clerk, would you please read item 1 into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 1 is a presentation by Our Streets Action Committee.
Thank you. Before we move on, I want to acknowledge a couple of people. I think our dear friend and colleague, council member Ugo, Soto Martinez is with us. Do you mind standing up so everyone can see you? He is the council district more north, that's closer to Hollywood. And then we also have with us today the general manager of the Department of Transportation, Connie Llanos. Connie. So I just want to acknowledge them because they really know how important this is, not just to us, but also to their daily work. So thank you for being here so much. And then we also have a friend from Bob Bloomfield's office that came down from Sherman Oaks on his bicycle to report back to the budget chair, so he could talk about how important this is. So thank you. I'd like to ask our friends from Our Streets Action Committee to come forward to the table and introduce themselves and start your presentation.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon yet? Oh, it's still morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Lena Williams. I am the Programs Director for People for Mobility Justice. I am Executive Team Member at Ride On Bike Shop and Community Entrepreneur with a small pet care business. I am also here representing the Our Streets Action Committee with my colleague and mentor here, Yolanda Davis Overstreet. And the title of our presentation is A Pathway to Mobility Justice in Los Angeles. And we hope that we can just, sort of give you a take on what we think some of the issues are and how we can move through some solutions together. Next slide, please. So we are a coalition, a diverse group of us, so we're made up of bike shops and community-based organizations. We're community-based nonprofits committed to creating a Los Angeles where everyone has the ability to move by foot, bike, wheel, with love and dignity in public space, right? That's very, very important. Through public education, grassroots mobilization, we urge Los Angeles County city leaders to deliver safe, equitable, and sustainable transportation and infrastructure. Yes, ma'am.
Can everybody in the back hear her speak during the presentation? Yes? Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And infrastructure, our streets and our sidewalks, Los Angeles deserves. So just shouting out our coalition members, SCOPE, Los Angeles Walks, People for Mobility Justice, Reciclos, Bike LA, Eastside Riders, ACT LA, Slate Z, Tamika Butler Consulting, Yolanda Davis Overstreet Consulting, Ciclavia, and Ride On Bike Shop and Co-op in Leimert Park Plaza. Next slide, please. So getting to some of the things that we've already talked about, many people have, sort of identified some of the major problems. I'd also like to just say on my ride here, we witnessed a hit and run into a house on MLK and Degnan. So if we're talking about coming to a transportation meeting and all of the things that we're facing, it doesn't get more, sort of in your face than a car and someone who's ran away from that car into disrupting someone's life, right? So had we been there at that intersection at that time, this could have been a different meeting. We may not have been here. So one of our major issues right now, the first problem, that the system and the process is really incoherent, right? In terms of implementation of safety in the streets and how we're moving forward with that. These things are all really tied in terms of how we're looking at the problems. Because if we're saying that there's no, sort of the process itself is a mess, that then we don't have any real citywide prioritization around how we fix streets. Because we're looking at it from a perspective of right now, from where we sit or where I sit, Beverly Hills, Century City, Hollywood, they get the street changes and the adjustments and all of those things happen very quickly. But when it comes to South Central LA, what are we talking about? I can fall in a manhole out here. So why are we not fixing the priority streets first? Why are we not prioritizing the money that we have to make sure that we're focusing on the streets that need it, not necessarily focusing on where the money in the city is being generated, right? So that's one of the issues. And then last one, no accountability. Who are we talking to about this? There's several agencies that we go to when we have issues and we say, oh my God, this is the issue. And they say, oh, you know what? I hear you. That's really great. I'm with you, but this is not my problem. Just go talk to these people. Then go talk to these people. So who do we focus this energy on? Who do we say this is the person who's going to be held accountable, who's going to stand with us and say this is the issue, we hear you, we're here to fix it? Where to direct those problems? Next slide, please.
Thank you, Lena. Once again, my name is Yolanda Davis Overstreet from Yolanda Davis Overstreet Consulting and Biking by Black Film. We're going to focus a little on the solutions that we're proposing. Number one, we're focusing on the coherent project implementations. So where we are today is that most major U.S. cities approach capital projects and infrastructure through a multi-year plan with targeted funding. This gives a predictability and transparency to how the city designs and maintains her streets. The city needs to budget itself responsibly, like we would expect from ourselves, long-term and multi-year. The state of our streets, half of the sidewalks are failing. And in the case of South LA and our disenfranchised communities, more than half, mostly all of our streets and sidewalks are failing. Broken speed hump programs, disconnected bike and bus lanes or no lanes, and all symptoms of an incoherent approach to how our city does transportation. No family should and should have to budget on a day-by-day basis. Why should our city? Our solution as an OSAC committee is to develop a 5-year-long capital infrastructure plan containing all major projects and street assets, their funding, timeline, and prioritize equity and local hire. This allows predictable spending, project management, and transparency. Next slide. Solution 2, as we've heard today, is that we need to prioritize equity. Where we are today, with limited resources as a city, we need to have a clear prioritization of projects. Yet, there are too many different definitions of equity, and as a result, no clear direction from the city in terms of the projects and their communities and the modes that should be prioritized. Instead, what we have is a well-known system, an old system, where these were those social and political capital, those who can shout the loudest, and need I mention, have the most money, get the city resources. This in no way is going to work in terms of connecting our city in a cohesive way. Our solution, to create a citywide equity framework to guide the prioritization of all projects and to assure agencies' uniformity is served and genuinely engaged in communities in most need, not neighborhoods most convenient or politically expedient. And lastly, but not least, slide 3, solution 3, the reorganization and accountability. Where we are today, it is a well-known issue in our city that there are numerous agencies and departments that deal with public right-of-way, each of which have their own objectives, as we all, as community advocates, have engaged with throughout the years and decades. As a result, it is not that Angelenos must navigate. It is, as a result, the result is that Angelenos must navigate incredibly in this bureaucratic city process for the basic street safety of our infrastructure and the lives that live in these communities. Furthermore, when the city fails to keep our streets safe, this diffuses the responsibility and results in zero accountability. And our solution is that we create a Department of Mobility, a new city agency that deals with all the business of the public right-of-way. By having one department, you create greater accountability and public transparency. Something like the fairly new Civil and Human Rights Equity Department that exists today. Thank you.
And we'll just like to, of course, close it out with, just a call to action. We would love to set up meetings with you all's offices to discuss, making this, something more, tangible that we can create some policy around and get some things done. What's, we can do now versus long-term options. How can we leverage, the Olympics coming to take advantage of those opportunities to get some of these policies passed? And for anyone in the audience who might be interested, the one-pagers are not present right now, but you can sign up on the sign-in sheet, and we'll capture your information and follow up with information and updates about how we can get you engaged to, sort of see some of these policies get enacted. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you all having this meeting and making space for us on a Saturday, and, just holding space for this very important issue in Los Angeles.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the presentation. And now I'm going to ask my colleagues, do you have any questions?
Go ahead. I just want to say thank you for this presentation, for the solutions, right? Because oftentimes we get approached with the complaint or with the problem, but not with solutions. So it's just really refreshing to see that y'all have laid them out for us. They seem like very tangible items that we should be trying to tackle, because a lot of our communities are some of the ones impacted by the highest injury networks. Like the tweets that were read out earlier, it's regularly a lot of our districts. And so I think it's the budgeting piece is really important, a long-term budgeting process. I'm glad that you all bring that up, because it's just unacceptable that it takes us 7 years to fix a sidewalk, 3 to 5 years to just put in a handicap lane. I've been to schools in CD1 where the bike racks are full, yet there's no bike lanes around the bikes, like the schools themselves. So it's, how are kids even getting here? So really appreciate the solutions, and we have a wonderful, wonderful leadership at DOT that I'm thankful that they're here, so we can figure out how we work together to not reinvent the wheel, but just put more air in the tires so we can get this moving quicker. Really appreciate y'all.
Appreciate the bike analogy also.
Thank you. Sure. Kelly?
Thank you for being here and for this great presentation. I want to echo everything my colleague just said. This has to be a network. We need to build out the network, and I really very much appreciate actual concrete recommendations. These are things that me and my team and my colleagues talk about a lot, but to have it up here is really helpful. I have a quick question for you. How did you, these all seem like obvious but important solutions. How did you all develop them, and what did that process look like? And I'm looking forward to sitting down with you, by the way. I think that'd be great, both from the city level, but also as a rep on Metro. How do we look at the system more broadly and make sure that people can access it, that people are able to get there, what first mile, last mile looks like?
I think more so, relying on the sort of experience of the vast network that we've created within this committee and their expertise, looking at solutions from that place of because again, you're saying we're not reinventing the wheel. So these are things that we've been thinking about and working on for a very long time, so being able to put it down in this place of a 1, 2, 3 step, sort of process, was something that came, I guess easier for us because we're relying on the network that we've already have.
And I'll just add that what Lena has shared is key if we look a little deeper into it in terms of community-based organizations making the decision to say we need to come together and that we need to make this a priority, and that we need to stand up. And so, you know, it's been work in action at least for the past 5 to 10 years. So I think it's just the time. It's one too many hit and runs. You know, it's one too many discontinued or no bike lanes. We have too many issues as it deals with the climate crisis, to the emissions that we breathe, to the gentrification that's happening, to the black and brown lives that are being shot or killed. It's all connected. And so this basically is our step up. You know, we are at the point of crying out, if you will, to say enough is enough.
Right. Yeah, and one of the commenters said, you know, it's transportation justice, is climate justice, is criminal justice, it's public health. It's all connected. And when we solve for this, we can solve for so many other things. So one of the things that's been most shocking to me, I've been on the council now for about almost 6 months, is that this issue is one of the few things that the city of Los Angeles doesn't actually have a dedicated budget item on. And it's all sort of grant-driven and opportunistic, and it just boggles my mind that we don't have every year a set aside, $100 million for bike infrastructure maintenance and new ones, or whatever the amount is going to be. And so figuring out how to get that in the budget for next year, and I feel lucky that I sit on the budget committee, and so I'm really glad we're having this conversation now. When we came on to council, the budget was kind of half-baked. So to know that we're going to have support from the community when we make that push for next year's budget is really helpful, and hopefully we can also have a plan in place so we don't just have a bunch of money with no plan and no one department in charge. So thank you.
And I'd just like to say just quickly, when we're thinking about budgeting and we're thinking about money and we're talking about equity, if we're thinking about protecting and taking care of the most vulnerable of us in the community, then everybody's covered. So if we start there, then we've done our work, right? So let's do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank you, our Streets Action Committee, and then all the other organizations that collaborate with you as thought partners to bring really substantive information to this committee meeting, but also to the subsequent meetings that we'll have. This is the only all-woman, and historically the only all-woman committee that the city has ever had, ever in the hundreds of years of the city. So we're excited to lead with compassion and thoughtfulness. And we're lucky that these are the partners, the colleagues on the committee. We also have 2 other women that sit on the committee. So it is strong, diverse, and thoughtful. And we're happy to be here to make change. Now I'm going to move on to item number 2. Mr. Clerk, please read item number 2 into the record.
Item number 2 is a screening of Biking While Black, continuing to ride through decriminalization, disenfranchisement, and gentrification.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the amazing Yolanda Davis Overstreet to give us instruction on part 2 of your documentary, Biking While Black. We look forward to watching this really important film.
Well, I'm just honored for the opportunity to show the film, short film today. This film really comes out of me being an advocate and activist. I've always kind of interested in film, but it is because of being an activist that this film came to life. It taps into really focusing on the range of experiences that Black lives and brown lives experience when they're biking in communities throughout Los Angeles. And we'll be able to, a lot of people in 29 minutes probably would have never grasped that the reality and the construct of danger, of inequities, but also that we do tap into joy and we do tap into solutions. So that's always a part of the work that we do. And I think the film speaks for itself on the range of leaders here in Los Angeles that both are activists and are solution makers. Some of them are here today that have been with me on this journey for the past 10 years. And the goal of this film is to grow advocates, to grow advocacy, and to get more people to be able to attend meetings like this, to be able to sit at the table and explain their experiences to improve our community. So thank you.
Thank you. You ready?
My name is Yolanda Davis Overstreet. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. That's me in the picture to the left. I'm a mom. I'm also a mobility justice strategist, an activist, an artist. Last year, I took a camera crew out. We talked to Black lives from across Los Angeles in an attempt to answer the question, just how safe are Black lives on bikes? And this is what they had to say.
When the same cop stopped me again and asked me the same questions, you already ran me, you know I live around the corner, why are you continuing to stop me?
And then the cop got on the loudspeaker and demanded that I pull over or I would be arrested. And I'm like, what is happening?
I don't ride through Beverly Hills anymore for what? When I was going through Beverly Hills, I would always fit the description. Black folks' movement has always been monitored and controlled within this society since we've been in this country, right?
That's not going to change until you take out the institutional racism. Just because there's a bike trail or a bike lane doesn't mean we're going to ride. We still have to deal with the same problems, you know?
When this happened, it really like messed me up, like sick, emotionally. Like I still cry every day. I was crying this morning. I still cry every day.
I went to South LA to meet up with Janetta Ewing, whose boyfriend, Dijon Kidsey, was shot by the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
Family members and activists call the shooting of 29-year-old Dijon Kidsey an execution and an unjustified use of deadly force. Several investigations are underway.
Y'all shot him 5 times standing up, and then 11 more times when he was already down for what? And I'm glad that the world got to see that it got caught on all these people's Ring cameras. But it's showing what they did because they keep doing it. Yeah.
I looked up and there were 2 police officers. They had jumped out of their cars and they had their arms like this, moving towards me and backing me towards the truck area. And I was like, whoa, 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 what's happening? You know, what's going on? They're like, oh, you're being detained. For what exactly? Pedestrian safety. Which pedestrian? You're talking about me? And then the very next question was, do you have warrants? Do you have warrants? Automatically told me it wasn't about pedestrian safety, you know?
Speaking of pedestrian safety, let's take a look.
A cyclist is in critical condition after police say a woman in a car ran over him multiple times here. It was all caught on surveillance video.
Sky 5 was over the scene of this hit and run right after it happened at 8 this evening. 2 bicyclists were struck by a speeding vehicle on Valley Spring Lane.
To a deadly hit and run today in Griffith Park. The driver of a car hit a man in his late 70s riding a bike or scooter. That person wound up leaving the scene.
Yesterday afternoon around 1:30, right on this spot, a young man was riding a bike and he got hit and killed. The driver took off. Today, at about the same time, a group of his friends wanted to pay tribute to him, so they gathered on this spot, all on their bikes, about 30 to 40 of them. The group got very large and they started heading down about a half a block to the intersection of Manchester and Normandy. That's when things got out of hand. Someone was hit. One of the people who were mourning got hit, and what you're about to see is the videotape of the immediate aftermath and then what followed. The screams of the crowd and And then there's chaos at the intersection of Manchester and Normandy. The man hobbling off before collapsing on the sidewalk is the one who got hit by a driver who made a turn at the intersection, hit him, a glancing blow, and then sped off.
My name is Eren Barrientos. I am the leader of Chief Lunes on Monday Night Ride. And I'm also part of Justice for Woon, for my friend who was taken from us on the streets of South Central by a driver back in 2018. You're on a bicycle, your life doesn't matter, you're a second-class citizen as soon as you jump on that bicycle. That is the attitude that is being shared all across America. And it has to change, like people are losing their lives over here just for riding and walking.
Our next door neighbor, he ran a flower store. Crossing the road, he got hit and was out for over 6 months, leading eventually to him having to give up his store. We had a young man, he got hit right here, okay? First car hit, second car hit, and the third car, he ended up over in French and Adams. Really, we have to be sensitive to the fact that people's lives matter.
We've literally witnessed families risking their lives to cross the street to go to school.
When officers arrived, they learned that the boy had been riding his bike when he was hit by a car. Investigators say that he was actually struck near the intersection of Maple Avenue and 36th Street and then dragged at least 1,000 feet before he became separated from the car.
To look at the numbers, I went to visit Madeline Brosen, the Deputy Director of UCLA's Lewis Center for Regional Policy Studies.
I'd like to say that things have changed for the better, but I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to see that. Before we talked last year, we were saying how, like, you know, in this 5-year period I looked at, like, we had about 200 people a year that died. That's not even every other day that someone's dying just trying to go to where they need to get to in life. And even that number kind of hides the fact that over that 5 years, like, things were steadily getting worse. It wasn't like there was kind of some ups and downs. And then we look in, 2020 and 2021, now we're up to losing 300 lives a year. And we're getting to the point of nearly every day. And that's just in the city. The other part about thinking about the lack of traffic safety in LA as mobility justice is recognizing that the solutions need to come from the community, and the solutions need to be about more than infrastructure. They have to be about overcoming white supremacism and using criminalization and police enforcement as a way to achieve these harm reduction outcomes.
Today is August 8th, 2022. We're here because an ordinance is going into effect today that will criminalize bicycle repair on the sides of City of LA streets. We think it's an overbroad, vague, punitive approach to, well, we're not exactly sure what it's really about, to be honest. Like, it's supposed to be to curb bicycle theft.
The city has come in and done this extreme law that criminalizes things that have nothing to do with bike theft.
Well, who does this ordinance affect?
I mean, it's primarily going to affect black and brown communities who ride. It's going to also affect unhoused people who use bicycle as their primary or only mode of transportation.
To look into the legal perspective, I reached out to colleague, community organizer, and recent graduate of Howard University of Law, Osceola Sankara. Where were these undercover cops to see you even be able to just simply get on a train?
Some of them were plainclothes, undercover, which is absurd that that's like a thing that cops are spending their time doing.
Right.
Waiting for kids.
Just so you can get
on the train and go home,
Right. Yeah.
So undercover cops, or sometimes they just be posted up in the station. But New York is just heavily policed, heavily policed.
And that's what we have here. People on the platform, police in the trains, looking to condemn someone from getting from point A to point B.
Exactly. Looking to control, looking to profile. Interestingly enough, one of my first projects at the bus riders union that I was supporting the organization with was doing some social investigation on the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department and their fare evasion enforcement practices.
Yeah.
And so they had me go to different stations, different train stations, and just sit and watch and see who got stopped and who didn't. And even though I'd seen this my whole life, it was still shocking to spend I spent, like 6 hours at a point, different stations, and just see young Black people getting stopped for the same thing, not paying the fare, as like a white person. I watched an older unhoused white man not pay the fare. Police saw him, didn't say anything. About a half hour later, this Latinx couple with a stroller with a baby did the same thing, and the cops came over and ticketed them. So just very clear, straight up racial profiling.
As you can see and hear, we have entered into a crisis. I had to seek further for hope. I had to seek out the voices and see the actions of where folks were working on solutions.
I've been here quite a few years. I've been in South LA quite a few years. Enforcement's always been a problem over here. Lately, we now have a connection with LAPD, trying to get a connection with the Sheriff's Department to voice our concern about enforcement. But since the Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd, we had issues with police stopping a lot of our young men, and Black and brown young men. The point that we got to phase 2, that enforcement has never been good on this side of town. We organize Faith for Safer Streets. It's a group of pastors and leaders, and our main objective is keeping people alive, keeping them safe. We, being the group of pastors, have talked to the LAPD. I was telling them, I said, I get anxious when the police just pull up behind me. Why?
Exactly.
I shouldn't be that. You should be a friendly piece that's gonna make me safe. Instead of that, I get anxious, and I can't imagine what the young men, Black and brown young men, are going through. We talked about the verbiage that they stop a car. They used to stop cars and say, what gang are you in? Wait a minute, to start out, let's start saying, sir, ma'am, we need to change our city. Elected officials need to listen to the people and not to the money and the power. Listen to the community. Don't change their streets until you talk to the community.
As time goes on, I think it's important for us, particularly as we try to get back outside, as we try to get into a normal swing of things in life, to be advocating for safety precautions and safety measures by putting bike lanes on our main streets and in our main corridors to help us to connect to different parts of the city. I started riding my bike in the pandemic, and I found that it was an excellent way to exercise once the gyms closed down. And so a friend of mine, he said, let's go to the beach and ride our bike. And then there are some days where I couldn't get to the beach, and so I decided to ride in my neighborhood. And one of the first things that I noticed was how fast cars were driving past me, and how there was not a dedicated bike lane to actually ride my bike in the neighborhood. And so I stopped riding my bike.
I hate to say it, but I would be worried here in LA. It doesn't feel as safe to me. And I spent 10 years guiding cycling tours in Europe, and that was never a fear that I had, because cycling is such a huge part of the culture there. It's a respect issue. They're gonna give you 10 feet of space to pass, right? And that's because that's what they learn when they go to driving school. On the flip side to that, the cyclists have a respect for the vehicles too. I will say here, riding, you get those Pelotons on PCH, they're 5 people wide. Well, yeah, some of the cars are going to be angry, right? And then they're going to take that out on the next person.
I met with Lizelle Jackson, former cycling tour guide and currently a surfing instructor and co-founder of Color the Water.
Why are you doing that white people stuff? I'm a mountain biker, I'm a hiker, right? Like, all of that stuff, I was met with that phrase. Unfortunately, right, I think that's something that our community has internalized, right? Like, these are things that were taken away from us, right? It's not that we never did them. Our access to the beach was taken away from us through redlining, right? The water, what about public pools? Most people don't know a lot of people don't know how to swim, right? Your parents didn't know how to swim, your grandparents didn't know how to swim. That stuff was passed down. That's a trauma, right? And it's easier to say, oh, we just don't do that, than to acknowledge the real reasons behind why we don't do that, right? Because that's painful. And so now I think we're starting to break through with that, right? And in cycling, I see so many more cycling organizations pop up. You know, some of these folks are from Inglewood, you know, or Compton, and like, it's amazing to see that, because when the younger generation sees someone that looks like them doing this sport, this activity that maybe doesn't fit kind of the stereotype of what Black people do, that gives them permission, right, to maybe explore that.
The more rides we did, we would post them on social media, just like we're outside riding our bikes. And people were like, I want to ride, I want to go too, I want to go too. So, you know, one thing led to another, one person after another, and I looked up and there were 20 people behind me. It blew up way more than I would have ever imagined. I noticed that more and more people were coming and needing it, and they were just thanking me so much, and I didn't even realize why. I was like, we're just riding bikes. For creating the environment, for creating the space, the safe space, like I said, safety was our biggest concern. We all came out, the first of us came out, and we had our bikes. And the number one question that we got from people was, how do I get a bike? How can I get a bike? They're sold out everywhere. It's quarantine. COVID, nobody can get a bike anywhere. I knew where to get them, and the guy that I got them from, he had a lot of them. So I just went back. I went back and got more, and I was selling them. I went back, got more, selling them, and the next thing I know, my garage is filled with bikes and bike parts, and I've got, you know, people calling nonstop. A lady, and I swear I wish I knew who it was, because I would hug her and I would tell her thank you. But she posted me as a Black-owned business. She's like, support Black-owned businesses. A few days later, we were dealing with George Floyd, the death of George Floyd, and we had a blackout day. I think July 7th, 7/7, and you were only supposed to buy from Black businesses that day. That day, I sold 15 bikes, like from 6 a.m. till about 4 p.m., and I was just delivering non-stop, and those 15 bikes turned into 15 posts. That turned into 15 riders. These people were getting bikes and then like, I want to go ride with you now. And that gave me a really proud feeling to see, like, at our ride, we got 40 people out here and 25 of them are on a bike that they bought from me. I didn't think I was a Black business. I just was selling bikes to my friends. I knew I wanted to keep riding and I wanted more people to come.
This is something that's taken me a long time to get to. It's not so much trying to include ourselves in these spaces, but creating our own. Because I worked at that. I tried and tried, but it's not being heard. It's not being heard at all. And so if they're not going to do it, then we do it ourselves, right? And then as we build that up, then they've got to pay attention that we are here. We've always been here. But y'all just didn't think it was worthwhile. You didn't think it was worth investing in this, right? You didn't think that we were interested in it. Now look. Now see what's gonna happen.
Looking at a paper one day, I saw an ad for this thing called Ciclovia. I was like, this looks amazing. It was like a big picture of a bunch of people riding in the street together, looking really happy.
Promoting pedestrian activities. It's closed to car traffic. Folks are able to walk, ride their bikes, skateboard, roller skate, just get out in the community and have fun and take advantage of the open streets.
taking over the street for a full day for 7 miles and letting people just ride their bikes. I was really stoked by it. I took my girl at the time, and it was one of the best days of my life. The amount of connection I felt with my neighborhood in my city and the people around me, seeing all these residents of the city smiling and having a great time and just chatting with each other and talking and engaging, and I was just like, this is really special.
Just a couple hours ago, I was dancing in the middle of 67th and Western. Never possible outside of today. So, just that, to be able to just be in the middle of the street, enjoying yourself freely, expressing that joy without, the fear of cars and, all of that commotion.
I feel like Ciclavia has played an interesting role in that. We realized as we started doing the events that small things would happen, right? Like when we do the event, the city will go and clean those streets the days before and days after, and they'll do modest improvements because they realize, the street's gonna be used, it's gonna be highlighted, and make sure the street looks good. So I was like, they're gonna make sure. Well, this is a great opportunity to get some potholes fixed in certain routes when we do South LA routes. So even that little temporary event creates an opportunity for attention that allows us to sort of move the needle on some of these kind of small issues, right?
I'm optimistic because of people like you, Yolanda. To see people that are so dedicated, that say my experience is professional, that speak up, that stay in it makes me so hopeful that there are so many other people like you out in communities in a world that feels very disconnected of the power of people coming together to make change. We have so many policy opportunity windows, and 6 months from now we're gonna have a whole new suite of people in power. We've had younger people, we've had people that have been less represented. We're gonna have an abolitionist on the City Council of LA, so there's so many signs of hope. It's very easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day tragedy, but if you look around, you see the people that are really putting their whole selves in their work. There's a lot of promise for kind of good things to come.
More voices to be heard, not only voices to be heard, but money and action placed in the air as you listen to the people, not just in the city, but in the state and all the way to the federal.
Yes. Amen.
That God can hear the voices of the city of LA from an impoverished community, that we're going to make some change here. I believe there will be change here and lives will be saved. That's our main objective, to live in peace, harmony, with life change and compassion for each other. In the home, in the school, on these streets, and in the church. That's what
amen.
Amen on that
one. It's clear that Black joy is the path forward.
I was a bike messenger, and I didn't believe that you can get paid to deliver legal documents on a bicycle. And as I continued to do it, there was no one that looked like me that was involved in the sport. That was part of my reasoning for starting LA Bike Academy, to get kids that I saw in my own community involved with cycling.
This is considered medicine for me, biking is medicine for me, for my spirituality, for my health, for my emotional well-being.
Being so connected to not just transportation, but nature. I'm slow enough that I'm racing butterflies, there's butterflies swirling around me, or June bugs, or whatever is right at my fingertips, because I felt like it was part of this natural cycle, and I was a part of that.
I love when people get to show that cycling is just not a white people thing. It's also there's brown and black people who love this community also, and they want to share what this is all about. It's about community, it's about respect, it's about love, and making the community a lot better.
As you can see, our streets and corridors are in a crisis. Our marginalized communities of color in many respects have not been heard or seen for decades. Lives are being taken and the people are grieving. That being said, I am encouraged by the work that is currently being done in Los Angeles to see the people taking action to uplift decriminalization, to regenerate our historically disenfranchised neighborhoods, and combat our public health crisis when community stands together. As BIPOC narratives have echoed through the centuries, we are the solution.
I'm going to wait until all the credits so that you can see the collaboration of everyone involved. Thank you so much. That was really enlightening. I'd like to ask my colleagues if you have any questions for Yolanda.
I just have one question. As you were making this, was there something that you were particularly struck by, or no pun intended, or surprised by as you were making it, that you learned that you didn't expect to find out?
Well, since this is kind of like a 10-year process on my part and Go Human, and I just shout out to SCAG and Go Human for making it possible. I think what stood out most is I didn't realize how extreme and how devastating the issue. It spoke even more to me in terms of meeting people that are in the film, like Pastor Pat and Eden and Woon, being killed, and Janetta, to actually hear their testimonies, brought it even more to life and really kind of showed me that this is a tool for so many voices that aren't being heard, that need to be heard, that need to come to the table so that we can make our city safer in terms of mobility.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting this project together and for putting faces to names. I remember, when Dijon Kizzy was killed, and, just too many incidences like that. What do you hope that we take from this?
Well, I think by hearing the voices that that this crisis is real, and that radical change needs to take place in terms of transportation and mobility justice. That also you understand it's more than just the roads and the role that racism plays, the role that redlining when it started and still is playing, and how important it is that we involve our schools and our child-centered spaces, so that when we talk about getting our young people on bikes, that you can and play a role in all aspects to make that a safe travels from their home to their school and then back. That basically, from a standpoint of the budget, that the money is there. All the work that I've done for the past 10 years, including this film, has been community service. So we need to make sure that we pay our mobility justice leaders so that they can be even more effective. If I can do this on my time, then can you imagine what we can do with the budget?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. And I really appreciate that. And team, I'm going to keep talking about the budget because we just came out of the budget process. So when it comes to moments like these, we can go to other nearby cities, we can go to other jurisdictions. I went to Vienna to study their housing model, but what I came back with was more than that. They literally, on one of the main streets that they had, it was like sidewalk for pedestrians, painted bike lanes with their own lights, intersection lights, train, and then vehicles. And on the other side, the same way, but like everybody had their own safe passageway, pedestrians to walk, bikers to bike. I could not believe the lights that they had. And so we don't have to, I wish I didn't have to go across the ocean to see that. And I know that other cities are doing that like around us, but there's just no excuse. Like the solutions are there and we need to really push for the funding. And I hope that, our departments, this upcoming budget cycle, that we can really dream big on actually meeting these demands of our communities, because it's not impossible. Just definitely we haven't invested enough in it. So
yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis Overstreet. And we want to thank you for your passion, bringing your passion to light, to film. Of course, when I saw this film, I've seen it before. I was still jerking and closing my eyes because of the violence that occurred, throughout your film. It really hit home, and it brings to light to us on this panel that we have to make change as soon as possible. So we thank you for your advocacy. We look forward to collaborating with you. You see that my colleagues are we have to make budgetary changes to do something. So this is really exciting.
Can I ask one more
Thank you
question?
so much.
Sure.
Just one more question. And in the film, you talk about there was a significant rise in people on bikes getting hit by cars during COVID in the last couple of years. I have all sorts of theories for why that might be happening. I think there was a massive amount of road rage over the last couple of years, but there were fewer people in cars during COVID, and people started riding their bikes more during COVID. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on why you think there's been such a 50% increase in people getting hit while biking in Los Angeles?
Well, number one, I think, I heard just from the data that was gathered is that with less cars, there were more cars that were speeding. They were open roads, so it was kind of like a free-for-all. And those are probably the same ones that are speeding when we do have traffic. We also do have an issue of extreme traffic. We have an extreme population and traffic. So in terms of education, in terms of events like Ciclavia, events like this, we need to keep pushing it, and we need to have funding to do that. With Biking Up Black for the past 8 months, we've literally had about 20 screenings. I purposefully have not put it on YouTube to be able to have screenings, to bring people together, to educate, to figure out how we can get back out on bikes and ride. So I don't think there's one reason this is occurring, but I do also think we have a mental health challenges and health crisis that is occurring. So with our hit and runs, you kind of think, how can someone hit another human being and keep going? What's actually going on with the person inside of that car? Did they even realize they hit someone? And if they did, how could they leave? So I think that's when we talk about DMV and all of the work there. So there's many issues, and I think as a team at OSAC and the work that I'm doing with Biking While Black, those are the conversations that we'll have to have and sit down and figure out the next steps to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's move on to item number 3. Mr. Clerk, please read the agenda item into the record.
Item number 3 is a motion, Blumenfield Harris Dawson, relative to motorist obligations in connection with pedestrian and bicyclist safety pursuant to AB 2147 and AB 1909.
Thank you. DOT, do you mind coming to the table? I have a few questions. You come in, thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, Mackenzie Racy, Director of Government Affairs, LADOT.
Thank you. So on item number 3, what changes did AB 2147 and AB 1909 make to state law with respect to the relationship between bicycles, vehicles, and pedestrians?
So AB 2147, which I believe is referred to as the Freedom to Walk Act or bill, made it legal to cross outside of a crosswalk. Before, that's what we referred to as jaywalking. You could get a ticket. Now, unless there's an obvious and immediate threat, you can cross the street where you please and not worry about being ticketed or confronted. AB 1909, which I think was otherwise known as the Bike Omnibus Bill, I think does a handful of things, but the two most notable are that the driver must pass you like you're a vehicle. So use the lane next to you, not just squeeze past you. And then also that you can use the crosswalk with the signal on a bicycle as well, so you can get ahead of traffic and cross with pedestrians.
Thank you. How quickly can we begin an education campaign on these issues? As we heard from public comment, they feel like it's really important that education is a part of our daily life, especially when it comes to vehicle bike sharing spaces. So how quickly can we see a campaign on this?
So I think we have a lot of different tools for a campaign. I think there's a wide range of types of campaigns that we could run. So when we report back on the resources and the staff that we would need to launch a robust campaign, we can talk about the different options we have, the different levels of funding that we may need, and if we have any external funding sources that might be available to help us do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Dream big and just tell the city how much, you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Put it on us. Put it on us.
And I just want to make sure that as you're developing those strategies, Metro is part of that. Buses, shelters, how can we use those resources?
We have a
too?
lot of city assets at our disposal that can help us run those campaigns for sure.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And if there's any way, I know that we have a lot of advocates here, if there's any way we can plug them in the front end to see if there's any ways to reach out to folks. And I mean, I think most people drive. I don't know if there's like car people, but it would just be good to also see where we can provide them with this information as well in a campaign.
Absolutely. I think we're always looking for input on the best way to message and reach communities, so we can, through our community engagement, find out what works best for people and incorporate that into our proposal.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, are there any objections to adopting this motion?
No, thank you, Chairwoman.
Seeing none, I recommend that we adopt the motion. Let's vote on item number 3, Mr. Clerk. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Hutt.
Aye.
Councilmember Park. Councilmember Park is absent. Councilmember Hernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Rahman. Councilmember Rahman is absent. Councilmember Yaroslavsky.
Yes.
3 ayes, and this item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're not used to claps after we vote. Okay, let's move on to item number 4. Mr. Clerk, please read the agenda item into the record.
Item number 4 is a resolution, Hutt, Park et al., relative to establishing the city's position regarding the city's 2023-24 state legislative program for legislation that would require bicycle and pedestrian safety to be taught and included in the California Driver's Handbook, the California Commercial Driver's Handbook, driver's license knowledge tests, instruction permits, behind-the-wheel drive tests, California Department of Motor Vehicle approved traffic school classes, and any other relevant area of instruction and licensing of vehicle drivers.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the CLA to come to the table and let's discuss the issue. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Marisa Roundtree with the CLA's office. Hi, I'm Anna McClelland-Inger from the CLA's office. So there is a prevailing attitude in this city and in this country that being safe, the responsibility of being safe, rests on the shoulders of bicyclists and pedestrians and not necessarily on those of the drivers themselves. And while roads may have originally been designed for cars alone, it has been made abundantly clear in this meeting that there's a great need for a cultural shift in our understanding of who roads are for and also of all of our responsibility in keeping them safe. Education is a huge part of any cultural change, but unfortunately, drivers testing, learning, and licensing in the state of California provides very limited information on bicycle and pedestrian safety. And it is for this reason that this office supports the resolution introduced by Chair Hutt and actually expands it to include in the city's state legislative program not only support but also sponsorship of any legislation that promotes education of drivers on the needs of our most vulnerable road users.
Thank you. I have a few questions. So my first question is, what type of bicycle and pedestrian safety education does the city provide already to individuals driving vehicles?
I think DOT is better equipped to answer that, so let me turn that over to them.
Hello, my name is Pamela Lee. I'm a supervising transportation planner at LA DOT. Currently, our way of educating folks is through our individual projects, where we go and reconfigure the street, and we have a big outreach campaign as well as posted signs after the implementation of the project is done. That's our typical way of educating the community. But in the beginning of our Vision Zero program, we had a big PR campaign where we talked about how speed kills, and so we repeat those statistics at every project whenever we approach a community about how and why we're there. And so that PR campaign was done in about 2018, 2019, and we had billboards and paid media, and we even had a Vision Zero hero and a sports athlete. I wouldn't say that campaign was, it had some lasting effects, but like all PR campaigns, they come and go, just like at each news cycle. And so we have an opportunity to re-engage in that way. But the pot of money that we do use for education and engagement is the same that we would use for that PR type of effort. So we would be kind of with each project, that would be the same pot of money. So going out to local communities and really talking about how we're changing the street versus a larger citywide campaign would come out of the same pot. We also have a Safe Routes to School program that has a really robust engagement campaign. As part of our efforts that have mostly been grant driven, we have created a series of tools that you can find on our Safe Routes to School website that has basically a campaign that you can do every single month of the year while school is in session. So it's Walk to School Day, or it's Traffic Safety Month, or things like that. And we have various materials that each school site can use, post on their websites. The staff and teachers can use them to educate their students that way on how to safely arrive to school, and just also learn about the rules of the road and how what are our obligations as pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. So that's what we have for now. Anything additional? You don't have any.
Good morning.
Dan Mitchell, Assistant General Manager for Project Delivery and Operations. The only other thing I was going to add is we do have a sign memorial program that recognizes when people have been killed on the streets of Los Angeles, and their safety messages included there as well. So that is a very sad reminder to people that they need to be very mindful of people who are on foot or traveling by bicycle.
Thank you. I have another question, and maybe the CLA can answer it. Does the state of California provide any major bicycle and pedestrian safety programs outside of the DMV, or has it historically been left to local jurisdictions? I don't even know.
I'm not aware of anything, but maybe you guys have coordinated with them, or no? Okay, I guess the answer is no.
So they leave it to local jurisdictions, in other words. Okay, then we have to do the work. Colleagues, Member Yaroslavsky?
I don't think so. Thank you.
I have a question. Is that okay, Chum?
Yes.
Thank you. What was the cost of that 2018 PR campaign?
We can get you the exact number. I think it was in the $2 million range, but I'm not exactly sure. It was a really comprehensive and robust billboards and all of those sorts of things. I think it was fairly pricey, but we can find out the exact number for you.
Great, thank you. Because I do think, it's figuring out a way where we can do this regularly, whether it's every few years. We have people getting licensed every day, a work day of the week, I think. And so, I would love to talk deeper about that, what the cost was, what the outreach was, if we need to enhance it. I know sometimes, we talk about people, a driver running someone over or hitting them, but oftentimes things like immigration status, prior convictions, like that, I know prevents people from trying to stop. And so if there's other, just trying to see if we can educate other communities on what it looks like.
Absolutely. I think the campaign we talk about most when we talk about a really successful public campaign is the Save the Drop campaign that the city ran, which I think was one of the more expensive public campaigns, but was very effective. And what we know from that is a campaign is best when you're telling the community what to do. And so I think we need to also be very thoughtful about what we're messaging and how, because it is harder to run an effective campaign about what not to do. And a lot of what we're talking about here is what we don't want people to do. So I think we also need to think about the right way to talk about this in a campaign.
Yeah, please. I hope we can, let's talk about that offline. It'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Are there any objections to adopting the CLA report and the revised resolution, members? Seeing none, I recommend that we adopt the CLA report, revised resolution, and let's vote on item number 4. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Hutt.
Super aye.
Councilmember Park. Councilmember Park is absent. Councilmember Hernandez.
Super I again, yes.
Councilmember Rahman. Councilmember Rahman is absent. Councilmember Yaroslavsky.
Yes.
3 ayes, and this item is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you to the DOT and CLA for your report and answering the questions. Mr. Clerk, is there any additional business before the committee today?
The desk is clear, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members. Thank you, advocates and writers and the public for coming to the community for a really important meeting about vehicle pedestrian safety, justice. We certainly appreciate the film and the reports. We're looking to move forward on item number 4. We're going to need you to come to City Hall when it's time for this to be voted by the full council, and we'll make sure that you have the information so you can come and support and talk in public comment about why this is important to you. Thank you so much for your time, energy, and advocacy. This meeting is adjourned.